Hello. I'm going to be pulling back the curtain more than ever before in this video to share a little more about my personal history and what led to me being the people pleaser with a history of toxic relationships that I am today, and what I've done to overcome it so that I can have the happy, healthy, playful, loving, supportive relationship that I now have. And I say that not to brag, but just to be an example of what's possible. And that's why I'm sharing this story, so that maybe you resonate with some part of it and you are able to see that it is possible to move through these challenges and to break these old patterns in order to show up authentically in your life and your relationships, so that you can live a life and be in relationships that really align with who you truly are. So, I've made some notes, so you might catch me looking down every now and then just because I have some bullet points to keep me on track. Otherwise I ramble. So a lot of how we show up in relationships has to do with our family of origin, the relationships that we experienced from the ages of 0 to 7, right? So your family, your caregivers, whoever was around you at that time. And that really impacts how we show up in our relationships, because our brains are developing so much in those early years, right? Neural pathways are forming based on the interactions that we're having with these people, that then informs how we show up in relationships, our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about the world, all of this, right? So because of that, my story begins at birth. So my parents met at university. They were madly in love. They've been dating about 3 months when they found out that they were pregnant with me. Unexpectedly, of course. And I say of course because it wasn't intended. My mom was not supposed to be able to have children, so they weren't overly cautious about protection. Anyway, along came me. They decided to put me up for adoption because they were like 20, 21, and they weren't ready for this, right? Totally understandable. But at the age of 3 days old, I was taken from my mother and put into foster care, where I stayed for 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, my mom would come to visit me. She would ride her bike out to visit me. And eventually at the end of that 6 weeks, because this was the grace period before I would go to live with my adopted family, which had been chosen, right? My mom and dad had picked them. So my mom would come out to visit me. At the end of the 6 weeks, the foster mom said, like, I don't think you're ready to give this child up, and I think you know what you need to do. And so my mom decided to keep me. So that was beautiful. She kept me. That's my mom. My mom is my biological mom. They took me home. They raised me. But that 6 weeks where I was separated from my mom would be very traumatic to an infant, right? And I don't mean this on a mental level. I just mean on a physical level. And I don't really know what happened during those 6 weeks, but I do know that the foster care that I was in was very kind and loving. So it could have certainly been way worse. But that separation, there's like a physical trauma that's going to happen in that little baby. That was me. So moving on, my parents, they stuck it out for about 2 years. They were young. They were trying to figure it out. And they ended up separating. So at that point, my parents split up. Another trauma, right? For a 2-year-old child. Where did daddy go, right? So I was going back and forth. My dad moved about an hour away, so I was traveling between homes. I think I would go to see him on the weekends or something for about 2 years. And my dad and I had a really strong connection. I remember just a lot of laughter and playfulness with him. It was just a very close connection that I don't know that I shared with my mom at that age. And then when I was 4, my dad moved to Japan. So I'm in Canada, he moved to Japan. And he basically made the decision to remove himself from my life. Him and mom weren't didn't get along that well. I mean, there was no animosity necessarily. They just weren't a partnership, right? They weren't in a partnership. The reasons he moved was that he felt that he couldn't show up as a father for me in the way he wanted to, and he thought it would be better for both mom and I to, repair or build our bond more strongly, and it would be better for everyone if he just removed himself from the situation. So off he goes to Japan. I'm a 4-year-old, like, again, where's daddy? And this was really devastating for me. And this is something that I dealt with a lot through my childhood and through my whole life, let's be honest. Still working through it. So there's that, that abandonment wound, right, that is formed when a parent just removes himself from your life, especially a parent that you're close with and have this loving relationship with. In and around this time, my mom moved in with my stepfather, and they're very different energies, my biological father and my stepfather. My stepfather is more of like a independent lone wolf kind of guy, not overly warm or playful. Great guy, but just not the same kind of energy as my biological father. As a 3-year-old, I'm like, what is this? Like, this is not my dad. I don't want anything to do with this. And then eventually my brother and sister were born, and my mom and my stepdad had very different ideas about parenting, and they found some way to compromise on the children that they share. But when it came to me, my stepdad just sort of threw his hands up and was like, she's yours, do what you want with her, like, I'm not going to get involved. So there was very much this division in our household of like, the kids were his and I was mom's, and so there wasn't like this super close connection with my stepfather. So as a child, I'm trying to make sense of all this from whatever understanding I have available to me at that age. And knowing now, looking back, there was this belief that started to form of like, I must not be lovable. I must not be worthy of love, right? My father left, my stepfather doesn't love me. This is what I believe at the time. So there must be something wrong with me. Now, I can see it when I watch videos of me at that age. There's this one video of me, like, I have this longing to be accepted and loved. And I think that really colored a lot of how I, even at that young age, of how I showed up in the world. So fast forward to, elementary school. Not only am I kind of a weirdo hippie kid, that was my upbringing, but I also have this like desperation to be liked and accepted, right? Which of course puts a target on my back for the very opposite. So that I went through a phase in grades 5 and 6 where I was, suddenly my group of girlfriends turned on me. I was bullied for like 2 years. And like, it was pretty bad. Like, it's tough when you're 10, 11, 12, going to school. You have no friends. No one wants to sit with you. People would put kick me signs on my back. I remember this one moment where like the girls were standing around my desk going like, dun, 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 while I'm like crying with my head on the desk. Like, kids are cruel, right? Come home crying every day from school. It's like, I just wanted to be liked and accepted, and it was the very opposite. So again, just reinforcing this belief that I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. So then I ended up having to switch schools for a few reasons. Mom wanted me to have a, higher education, whatever, but also I wanted a fresh start socially. And I remember, really having this switch, because I go to this new school. I'm there for grades 7, 8, and 9. It's a private school. It's a strange mishmash of like academic kids, bad kids, whatever. I kind of fall in with like the nerdy band kids, right? Like the sort of artsy, nerdy kids. But again, it's like, people are making fun of us. Like, I feel like I don't really fit in, and I remember this shift where I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm not I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be accepted. And I started really paying attention to like what the popular kids like did and wore and how they talked and all of this. And I started molding myself to fit in with that so I could be accepted. And I remember like saving up my babysitting money to buy contacts because I wear glasses, right? And I was like, that's not cool. Gotta get rid of those, right? So just getting my hair done differently. And I remember coming to school in grade 9, and that summer between grade 8 and grade 9, it was like, oh, Mischaela got hot, right? Like I really put the effort into changing my image and the way I showed up, and it was being well received. And suddenly I was like hanging out with the popular kids, and I was getting this kind of positive feedback. When you're in junior high, it's like you're started being interested in boys, and boys were paying attention to me. And I was like, okay, like, yes, it's working what I'm doing. And then moving into high school, having my first relationships, my big relationship was with a guy that I was like wildly attracted to, deeply in love with, in my grade 10 brain. But it was very much like a physical connection. Like there was no emotional or like no emotional support, no mental connection. I remember we took the bus to school, we rode the same bus to school together. I remember like waiting for the bus and trying to think up like conversation topics because we couldn't just like make out on the bus. So I had to think of something we could talk about, right? And this went on for like years. I didn't feel like I could show up fully as myself in this relationship because when I was younger, people left me, right? So there was sort of this belief, like, if I make the wrong move, people will leave. So everything I did was very calculated and curated. And, again, striving to be popular. It was like, the clothes, the hair. I was like on the cheerleading team, even though we weren't popular, but like just trying to hit these markers of what would make me popular / liked / accepted. So, moving into my 20s, well, I became a hairstylist, right? Because I was like, I always wanted to be in the entertainment industry. I wanted to be an actor. To me, like actors were like the most popular people, right? So I wanted to be in that world. And then, sort of started to realize that would involve a lot of rejection. I actually got rejected from the lead role in the school play and was like, I can't take it. Like, that's it. I'm going to choose another path. Because it's more just like reinforcement of like the unworthiness, the unlovability, like, oh, I didn't make it. I didn't get the lead role. Like, I must not be worthy enough. And I just, at 18, knew I wouldn't be able to handle that and knew that it would require like an acting career would bring a lot of rejection, and I just didn't have it in me. So then I realized I could be a hairstylist because hairstylists still are involved with the entertainment industry. So I could be like adjacent to it. I was still very interested in that world, but I wouldn't have to face that same rejection. And so off I go to hair school with dreams to work in like film and fashion and TV. And when I was 21, I got on a hairstyling reality show. This was aired on the Slice Network here in Canada. And that was really cool and really great for my career. And I ended up moving to Toronto, one of the bigger cities in Canada here, where I'm from, and started, my career seeking to be like sort of the best, like world-class hairstylist I could be, and with the goal of working in film and fashion and television. And within like a few years, I had achieved that. I'd worked in a film, I'd worked on several TV shows, I've been the makeover stylist for TV shows, I was doing celebrity hair for various events. And, this was like goals, check. But it wasn't feeling the way I wanted it to feel. And so there was sort of this big shift in my personal development that started happening then, because it was like, okay, I've achieved all my goals, now what, right? So, and then on the dating front, I was at that point, I was dating women. So I had moved to the big city, and I realized I was attracted to one of my coworkers, and we started dating, and like that sort of opened me up to this whole world of just exploring my sexuality. And connecting with women was so different because when I had dated men, it was so physical and I didn't feel like I could show up authentically. There wasn't that emotional connection I was looking for. With women, there was that emotional connection and there was a physical connection. I'm not particular about anybody's bits, you know, like if there's a connection there, I can work with whatever you got. So I guess you could say I'm pansexual because your physical form isn't the make it or break it for me. It's more about like your qualities as a human being that I'm attracted to. But the thread that was still there from like the guys I dated to the women I dated was like this theme of them being like what my mom would call wounded birds. I was always dating the wounded birds, right? And it was like I was trying to fix them with my love. I don't know if you've heard of the trope, the manic pixie dream girl, but like that was me. I was like always just like appearing in someone's life and being like, I'm here to like shake up your world and help you see things with a new perspective and like be everything that you want me to be, right? So I was always trying to fit myself into this perception I had of what they wanted me to be rather than just showing up as myself, right? Then there was a period of personal growth where I was just very focused on my own inner journey, and I was pretty single during that time. There was dating people, but I mean, Toronto's like tough in your 20s to date, to find like a serious relationship. Nobody's looking for that. That's a blanket statement, but that was my experience at the time. So I was on this personal growth journey, which involved like yoga, meditation, therapy. I ended up doing an ayahuasca retreat in Peru. Books, YouTube videos, like I was just like down the rabbit hole on all topics, personal growth, spirituality. I was unhappy. I was unfulfilled. Like I said, I had achieved all these goals in my career and I was kind of like, now what, you know? This doesn't feel like how I thought it would. It's not as fulfilling as I thought it would be. So like, how do I fill this void, right? So that led to, me actually moving home. So moving back to my smaller town from this big city. I wanted to take a course in holistic nutrition. I had made some lifestyle changes to my diet and exercise. Like I went from being like a party animal out 5 nights a week to like taking care of my body and my mind and my heart. So moved back home, took a course in holistic nutrition, was like, okay, I'm going to be a nutritionist. Also started exploring Reiki, which is working with our energetic field. And this was, very, illuminating. It was a lot. It helped a lot with my own personal growth, but I quickly realized this was not exactly what I was meant to do for others. Although I was doing it, I was working on a wellness retreat in Costa Rica, doing Reiki and nutrition. When I met one of our guests, a woman who is a coach, she introduced me to the world of coaching. And this was like the thing I'd been looking for. That was the thread that connected everything together. So I started my coaching journey, doing my coach training. Now, in and around this time, I had been dating this guy who was not a fit for me. Let's just say that. He was a lot younger than me, legal, but not old enough, not mature enough. But I wasn't either, honestly. Like this, I see this relationship as the turning point for me because it was such a ridiculous, toxic relationship that it was like really showing me the lessons I needed to learn. Like I hadn't learned the lessons when they were like a whisper. I hadn't learned them when they were trying to be said to me. I wasn't learning the lessons like when the universe was shouting it at me. So it was like the universe had to hit me upside the head with a bag of bricks for me to like get it, right? So, this guy, like, he hit all the markers of my relationship history. It was purely a physical relationship. There was very little conversation. There was very little intellectual connection or stimulation or emotional support. He was a wounded bird. I wasn't able to show up authentically. I completely abandoned my own wants and needs. Like I wouldn't go to the gym because he was going to come over, I prioritized him and the relationship over myself and my own wants and needs every time. He crossed all the boundaries. Like, it was, we're together, we're not, we'd make up, we'd break up. There was a lot of gray area. He'd see someone else, I'd see someone else. Like, it was just a mess. And it went on for 3 years. So it wasn't until the third time that he cheated on me while we were together that I had this flash of clarity finally that, like, I deserve better. This is bullshit. Like, why am I putting up with this, right? And, like, I take responsibility too. I should have seen the signs. I should not have been in this relationship. I shouldn't have expected him to be able to show up in the way I expected him to. Like, he just wasn't capable, and all the signs were there. And it wasn't just an age thing. Like, it was just, he was showing me who he was, and I wasn't believing it, right? So, I have a part to play in this as well. And as it was breaking down, I remember I went for a tarot reading. I had gone to psychic. I was looking for any sign that this could work, because I was just, like, addicted to this person. I was addicted to the love, or like the physical connection. I don't know. I was addicted to this person, and I wanted to find a way that it could work. I wanted to be told that it could work. And so I went to this tarot reading, and the guy, like, pulled these cards, and it's like fire and swords and, like, a dark tower with someone falling from it, and like the death card. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but none of that looks good. And he basically, what I took from that, he said, like, you need boundaries. You need better boundaries. Like, what are your boundaries? I want you to write down a list of what your boundaries are. And I was like, boundaries. Like, this was a concept I hadn't even conceived of, because I was so focused on being what they wanted to be, meeting their wants and needs, that I didn't even consider my own wants and needs, right? Which is a big part of boundaries, knowing your wants and needs, knowing what the lines are, right? So I sat down, I made a list. I was like, well, don't hit me and don't cheat on me. And I was like, well, I've got 2 boundaries and he's broken one of them. So this isn't good. So I had come to this point of clarity where, like, this isn't going to work. I deserve better. I deserve at least the love and care and kindness and consideration that I give. I deserve that back. That finally hit me with such clarity that there was no ignoring it. And so I just cut things off with this guy, blocked him, deleted him, removed him from everything, was like, it's got to end. We're done. And then, was talking to a lot of people in my life about this. That's one of the ways I process things, is just talk to everybody about it who will listen. And someone had said, one of my clients had said, you got to make a list. My friend did this. She made the list of what she was looking for in a partner, and boom, along he came. And I was like, and I had heard this, was not the first time I heard this. I'd heard this several times. You got to make a list, get clear on what you want in a partner, right? So I did it. I made the list. And within 3 weeks of making this list, Colin appeared. That's my now husband. I already knew him. We had met him before, and, like, sparks had flown, but it was just never the right time. Like, and anyway, he re-entered my life, and it was like, check, 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 check. And right away it felt different, because I was able to just show up authentically. I was able to just be myself. And there was, like, an intellectual connection. There was a humor connection. Like, there was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of playfulness. And, as things progressed, I was like, this is going to be different. I'm going to show up differently in this relationship. Now, in and around the same time was when I started my coach training. So I started dating Colin. I started doing my coach training. So through my coach training, I was learning a lot of skills and tools on, communicating, having courageous conversations, taking bold action, stretching out of my comfort zone, getting to know myself more deeply. Like, what are my values? Like, what is my mission? What is my purpose? Who am I when I'm at my best? What are my triggers? What holds me back? What are my old patterns? How do I self-sabotage? All of this, exploration was happening. I was discovering so much about myself and learning tools on how to be the version of myself that I wanted to be, right? So perfect timing, I'm able to use these tools to show up in this relationship more authentically. And Colin provided a safe space for me to do that, because he was emotionally aware. He was supportive. He was kind and caring. He actually also had a history of trying to love the wounded birds better, right? So fix them with their love. So, finally we met someone that brought the same care and consideration to the relationship that we did, right? So it was a really safe space for me to show up in this new way. And even still, it was absolutely terrifying to set boundaries. It was absolutely terrifying to say, listen, like, I can't handle it when you're late. Like, if you're going to be late, I need you to let me know, or just, you got to do better and be on time. Right. So, things like this, like, I don't like it when you pick me up. Like, he always wanted to like pick me up and throw me over his shoulder or something. I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with that. Like, please don't do that. Right. So expressing this took a lot of courage for me, but he allowed the safety and the support for me to do so. And so we've now been together for 7 years. We were married almost 4 years ago. We have an almost 2-year-old son now, and it is the healthiest, most loving, safe, supportive, playful, inspiring, encouraging relationship that I've ever had. And it's the relationship I always saw out there in people. I would see it in my friends and my clients, and I was like, okay, it's possible. I want that. And now I have it. And it took work. I'm not saying it just fell in my lap. It took work. It took awareness. It took courage to show up authentically in this relationship, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it to have someone that's totally in my corner, that encourages me, that inspires me, that challenges me. There's healthy pushback. There's just so much love, right? So, and a big part of it too is like, stuff still comes up. Like, there was still a lot of, trauma and triggers that came up once we were together, but it was a safe space for me to work through that and to feel safe and to not feel like he was going to abandon me if I showed up imperfect, right? So it took a lot of time to work through that, but still stuff is coming, but I just feel so safe and secure in this relationship in a way that I never have before. So that is my story so far. That's my story of what happened in my past that led to who I am today, and some of the work that I've been doing to overcome it. And I'll share more as it goes on, but I just wanted to give you all a little insight into, my history and my background and what led me to this work and why this is so near and dear to my heart. And that's why I show up here, and that's why I do this work, is because I want to share these same tools and perspectives and practices, and offer this safe space for self-discovery to you, so that you can find the life and the love that you are longing for. And maybe that's not in a romantic relationship. Maybe it's like you need to show up more authentically in your family relationships, your friendships, your work relationships, right? Like, the more that we come to know ourselves, the more we can love ourselves. And the more we love ourselves, the more authentically we show up in our life, the more confident and courageous we are to take action that aligns with who we are, that aligns with our values, so that we can live a life that feels more fulfilling. Honestly, this is just about minimizing our suffering and maximizing our joy. So if you have any thoughts or questions, I'd love to hear like any parts of my story that resonated for you. Feel free to share them in the comments below. You can find me on Instagram. You can email me, hello@mischaelarichter.com. There's a lot of ways to reach out to me if you feel called to do so. If you're ready to start your own self-love journey, the self-love program is a really great way to start. That's a group program that I offer, where I help guide you through the 6 signposts on the path to self-love. And you get to do that with the support of a community of like-minded individuals. It's a very beautiful, loving, safe space. So if that is something that interests you, again, reach out. There's links in the description below for you to find out more information. That's all. That's all for now. I hope that there was something in this for you, and I'm sending love.